Hi, it's Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, and I'm back with my plans and pans. I want to start with a really bright note because I was just at the Botanic Gardens, which is so beautiful and fabulous. It's a cold day in Chicago, but the leaves, it's a bright sun, and the leaves are absolutely so beautiful. But I was there for a naturalization ceremony where 144 people became citizens of the United States from 40 different countries. It's such a beautiful thing to see. And Illinois has one of the highest numbers of immigrants that come here and become citizens of the United States. We've seen about a 20% uptick in the number of citizens over the last year. And so this is a welcoming place for immigrants. We know right now that so many migrants are coming who are certainly needing help. The governor of Texas is putting in busloads people to send them here, even though it's very, very hard to find housing and shelter and health care for all of those people, all of those needs. People from around the world continue to choose the United States of America. I thank them for that. I am a first generation American. My father, as a small child, I think about 4 years old, left Lithuania with his parents. And my mother came as a little child. Her family was from what is now Ukraine. It was Russia at the time. And in both cases, Jews found it important to be able to come to the United States of America. But this ceremony of all of these people proudly becoming citizens, it takes a long time. You have to be here at least 5 years, but many of them had been there even decades waiting to become citizens. And it was really my joy to welcome them and be at that ceremony. But I want you to know that for the most part, this really has been, if not the hardest time since I've been in Congress, which is now ending 24 years. This is a very, very difficult time. And the principal reason for that is that the world is on fire. And what we are seeing was the unacceptable, horrendous attack by Hamas on the state of Israel, killing 1,600 people and many, many more who were injured. But following that, what we have seen is that Israel has been fighting back. I understand that, but we are seeing a humanitarian disaster happening in Gaza right now. Gaza has about 2 million people, 2.3 million people in a very, very small area. And half of them are children. And now what we are seeing is a shortage of everything: water, electricity, health care. And we're also seeing a large number of hostages that have been taken, about 200 hostages, and many of them are also from the United States. You know that 2 of the hostages were released, 2 that actually are from Evanston, Illinois. And I met with a whole group of hostage relatives, families, parents, talking about, you can only imagine being a parent with not knowing what is happening to your child who has not been seen. Not all of them have even been identified right now as being hostages, so you don't know where your children are. So I have been a strong opponent. I've sent out letters, I've sent out statements saying we must have humanitarian assistance right now. We should have a pause in the conflict right now. There continues to be bombings, more and more death and destruction, and no end in sight right now. And so I am pushing very, very hard to have robust humanitarian assistance. And what I'd really like to see is the United States, Israel, and the international community coming together for a long-term solution. For a long time, I have been a proponent of two states for Israel and for Palestinians living side by side. And I fear that unless that happens, and I understand it's not easy and it may take some time, but I think it is the only way for long-term peace and the end of perpetual violence taking place. So this is a really difficult time for me as a Jew, for me as a human being, and I'm hoping that there will be a solution that we can all live with. So I'm sure many of you have seen that we now in the U.S. House of Representatives have a speaker. His name is Mike Johnson. Never heard of it? Well, most people had never heard of it before. Some people call him MAGA Mike, and others say he is like Jim Jordan in a suit. In other words, he's a smoother talker. When it comes to policy, the things that he really cares about, Mike Johnson is as anti-reproductive rights as you can possibly get. Not only is, of course, he was celebrating when Roe v. Wade was overturned, wants to see a national ban against abortion, wants to see abortion providers criminally charged. He is also absolutely against the gay and lesbian community, the LGBTQ plus community, and has introduced a piece of legislation that says, don't say gay. Law. Don't say gay. Mike Johnson is an insurrectionist. He voted to overturn the election. So this is as right-wing a person as possible, but also anti-justice for most people. November 17th is the deadline now to come up with a budget, or there could be a shutdown of the government. What I expect, though, to happen is that there will be an extension of what we call the continuing resolution. We have already crossed the deadline for having a budget, but there was a vote to say we're going to kick the can down the road until November 17th. Well, that is coming up, and my guess is that we may do the same for us to try and work, Democrats and Republicans together, to try and keep the government open. Shutdowns are very bad for individual people, for workers, and for the economy. So we're going to work hard to get a continuing resolution at the very least, if not an early agreement. And finally, in the waning day of the Breast Cancer Awareness Month, I want to talk to you about something very close to my heart, or I might say close to my breast. It's about dense breasts. I am one of about half of all American women with dense breasts. Now, it is not necessarily a problem, but become a hazard for breast cancer. 43,000 women die of breast cancer in the United States every year. And 71% of the women who are diagnosed with breast cancer have dense breasts. But you know what? Only about 33% of us even know about that. Now, there definitely are techniques to identify whether or not you have dense breasts and find spots of cancer if need be. MRIs, there's other things that can be done. The problem is that these other techniques can cost up to $800. Now picture that, being told that, well, the mammogram really isn't sufficient, but you do have to do more. There are women who are just going to say, I can't afford that. I'm not going to do that. And consequently may end up with breast cancer. So I have a piece of legislation along with my dear friend Rosa DeLauro called the Find It Early Act. What that bill simply says is that just like with a mammogram where there is no cost, that any other diagnostic test has to be at no cost. We want to encourage women to have those tests to make sure that you find out, because we know that it is very common and we also know it can be deadly. So we want to save lives, and that's the legislation that we have introduced. So, if you're not from my district or not from even from the state of Illinois, make sure that your congressperson is told, please come and support the Find It Early Act. That's it for me today, the good and the bad, the ugly, and I will see you next week with my plans and pans. Thanks so much. Thank you for watching my video. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, where my handle is @Jan Schakowsky.